pretty important site visit along with our chairman Hamish Halliday, and we're obviously hoping to push that agreement forward so that EcoPro can work with us in building a downstream processing facility in Vietnam once Blackstone comes to the decision of making a development decision at the Ta Khoa Nickel Mine. We've got a number of projects spread over the world, over the globe, and we originally started as a WA-focused gold and nickel, more specifically in Eastern Goldfields, and then we branched out into BC of the Cobalt project, which I'll touch on a little bit later in the presentation, but I'll probably focus on that Ta Khoa Nickel Copper Cobalt PGE project in Vietnam. Just summarising a little bit about those projects. Like I said, Ta Khoa is a nickel project previously mined. We acquired that asset in May this year. We got an option to purchase the 90% by Asia Mineral Resources, AMR Nickel, and there's also a 10% local partner there who remains obviously still with that ownership. The mine was produced nickel for 3 years, about 975,000 tonnes at 2.4% nickel, 1% copper, and in Vietnam you pay a 20% tariff on concentrate, so we'll address that issue later in the presentation. Mine was built to Australian standards. It was mined by Mancala, a contractor known on the east coast of Australia, and over $163 million US was spent on the project, and it's generated $213 million US. Now the project is under care and maintenance. The vendor was the metallurgist who ran the plant, so he looks after his gear properly, so the labour cost is low, so we can have a team of 20 people sitting on site for a very low cost on a per month basis. We also have the BC Cobalt project, which if I get time I'll talk about that. That's developed into a very large IP target there with anomalous copper, cobalt and gold. That's ready to drill. We also have, back focused in WA, we have a fantastic piece of ground which was the flagship of the float at Silver Swan South. We're 8 kilometres along strike from Kanowna Belle Gold Project and 10 kilometres away from the Silver Swan Nickel Project. We have already intersected gold in our air core. We're drilling under a salt lake, so that's why it's still there. And we've got 33 metres of sulfide drilled in ultramafic by a gold explorer untested, which needs to be repeated. So that's still a pretty exciting target itself for nickel. We've also got the Middle Creek project, which is next to Millennium's gold project and Nova Resources gold project up near Nullagine. Bit about the corporate structure. Still, it's a young company, so we've still got reasonable low number of shares, just under 200 million. We welcome a new major shareholder who's been joining a lot of the juniors in this space, Alcan, Black Venture Minerals. We have Deutsche Balaton, who's on the register of all those companies. Alltech, sorry, I meant to say. And the board of management still has 17%, and Deutsche Balaton has 16%. But you can see since the acquisition of the Ta Khoa Nickel Project, we were trading around about 5 cents. We're now went up to almost around about the 18-cent mark. So that's been, as you can see, that rise there over that short period of time this year. So we've gone for a bit of a run just recently. So I think the market appreciated that, and that was well timed with nickel price increases. Bit about the board of management team. Has a proven track record of mineral discoveries. Names like Hamish Halliday and Steve Parsons you've heard before. Steve is having great success again, but this time with Bellevue Gold in WA, getting an old asset that was unloved, gold asset which was owned by a nickel mining company, turning that into a multi-million ounce gold discovery, or rediscovery if you like. So throughout that whole team you see that we have a group there in West Perth which has got a great deal of success, and we've transformed, if you like, IPO companies into hundreds of millions of dollars takeovers in the past. Adamas Resources and Griffin Minerals being two prime examples of that. Now a bit more into the Ta Khoa Nickel Project, located only 160 kilometres as a crow flies from Hanoi, but 240 kilometres by road. Like I said, the mine is built to Australian standards. It's currently under real care and maintenance, so it's a great asset that we've got our foot on. We have exclusive access to 150 square kilometres, and there's a core area there which is around about 35 square kilometres where we've got most of the exploration's been focused on. And here we have around about over 25 massive sulfide targets. We've only mined one of those on this project so far, and we've got several disseminated sulfide targets within that same area, so I'll talk a bit more about that later. Like I said before, we produced something like 1 million tonnes previously in the mine at 2.4% nickel, 1% copper. The concentrate was bought by Jinshuan Nickel, so it's already been well and truly tested from that perspective. And like I said before, there was a fairly large investment of over $130 million US. And this project was mined at the time when full nickel prices, so still to generate that amount of revenue. And as the government of Vietnam would testify, they were very happy to see $65 million go into their pockets in the process. So Blackstone, like I said, has the option to acquire this asset. We've got 12 months to make that decision and an additional 12 months if required. A bit about the geology, the Ta Khoa Nickel Project. It's in the province of the Soll province. It's all sealed roads to Hanoi and to the port, which is the port's being 357 kilometres away. Exploration began here in the 1950s and 60s, primarily focused on copper, but when AMR Nickel got involved, it began exploration in 1996, and in 2008 began mining. Then the GFC came in, suspended activities, and then construction then recommenced in 2012, and the mine commenced from 2013 through to 2016. There's 62,000 metres of diamond drilling. We also acquired a diamond rig, which drilled down to 150 metres when we got the asset. We are currently drilling there at the moment with 4 rigs, one being ours, one belonging, and the other two belong, 3 of those, 2 of the 3 belonging to the government, one to a contractor, so we can extend that drilling down to 300 metres. Now, the 62,000 metres completed before, the majority of that was something like 80% of that went into Ban Phuc underground mine. In terms of the geological setting, you can see here that it's along this rift here, and that rift goes and connects itself into China, and that Songdan rift has got a geotechnic and structural setting very similar to the nickel and cobalt deposits such as Norilsk in Russia, further up to the north, and Jinshuan also in China. So we've got a good pedigree. There's been a fair bit of work done on this area, but it's fair to say there's no real Australian company has had any modern day focus on the exploration here. So it's a great opportunity for Blackstone. Now a bit more about the asset. Like I said, it's a modern mechanised underground mine done to Australian standards. It's, like I said, under care and maintenance. It was a modern mine. It was designed processing facility, 450,000 tonnes, modest in size, connected to local hydropower, which is at 7 cents a kilowatt hour. So nice and cheap, high recoveries, 87% nickel, 95% copper, 90% cobalt, and it has a fairly modern, as you can see, 250-person camp. Like I said before, the project, as it stands today, a modern-day picture. Like you can see, it's in pretty good nick. Like I said, the vendor is a metallurgist. He wants to keep his equipment well and truly ready to go. And a lot of that equipment has been, instead of sitting there rusting, has been stored in the workshops properly and maintained on a regular basis. There's a few more snapshot pictures of the underground operations, like the tails dam, which is fully permitted, designed in Australia, and has capacity to go further, and there's also other expansion options. We have established workshops, fabrication and maintenance facilities. This is like a mine you'd expect in Australia, except it's located in Vietnam. We've also got on site an internationally certified laboratory. The performance of the mine previously was, I thought, pretty impressive. When you look at these numbers it sort of goes to show how you can make money in these jurisdictions. Now, overall, it's around about 25% lower operating costs, and a lot of that's to do with the labour costs. The Vietnamese are very good workers. They, once taught, they they are very dedicated and very skilled, and also we have that benefit of the hydropower. So the only negative has been the tariffs, and in terms of the concentrate. Vietnam likes to see value add, and we're hoping to achieve that with I suppose Blackstone's idea about bringing this asset forward. As you can see from the graph there, it's the project operators for some pretty low cost, low nickel prices. That's a graph here on the left-hand side. But that's the difference these products make, the copper and the cobalt, which were acquired, and they managed to add, to lower those costs sufficiently to get it down to something like $2.35 a pound, which I think is pretty impressive during that period of time. So, pretty good result considering the conditions of the commodity price of the day. Bit more onto the geology. This is the main part of the Ta Khoa Nickel Project. It sits on a dome, anticline with a dome, and that area there, you can see there's several targets, and most of those listed there are the massive sulfide targets. So, like I said, the project sits within the Ta Khoa anticline and has something like over 25 massive sulfide targets and several disseminated sulfide targets. So 80% of drilling focused on the mine that's been mined out, and there's been minimal drilling outside of this. So the project, which Parla was involved in investments, weren't really interested in exploration. So I think there's great upside there for Blackstone, who is obviously generally an explorer. Some of those veins, prospects that have been drilled in the past, just highlight maybe a few of those intersections so you can get a bit of a feel for what the asset's like. Got 2 metres at 4.2% nickel, 0.4 copper, 0.14 cobalt. King Snake 1.7 to 3.3 nickel, percent copper, over 2 grams of PGEs. It's pretty impressive. Panjang 1.6 metres at 2.2% nickel, 1.5 copper. Ban Kang 2.6 metres at 1.6 nickel, 0.7 copper, and Ban Mong half a metre at 6.1 nickel, 0.1 copper, and 0.2 cobalt. So there's plenty of potential to be looked at in that area, and we can find several other massive sulfide deposits which we can use for blending purposes or mine separately in the future. Like I said before, Blackstone's idea really is about is looking at prospective disseminated sulfides, looking at bulk tonnages here, and you can see from this map that this is a 1.3 metre wide massive sulfide vein that was mined out previously. That's sitting here on this map. There's this huge feature here, intrusive, which has got this full of disseminated sulfide, and there's some fairly big intersections in that. So that's what we're going to focus on going forward, and that's what we're drilling at the moment. And here's some of the cross sections which show the massive sulfide out here on the left-hand side. But you've got intersections here with something like, and you might be struggling to see some of those, but 74 metres at 1% nickel and 0.2% copper sitting out here, and they're big zones which can be mined either as bulk underground or an open pit. We've got 71 metres at 0.9% nickel and 1.1% copper, and 83 metres at 1.1% nickel. So we're looking at a big disseminated system. We're drilling that now. A lot of the drilling done in the 60s, as well as some of the more recent stuff. So we're infilling that to get up to the JORC standard, and looking to get that completed within the next 6 months and put something out to the market, closely followed by a scoping study. As I said, I've touched on briefly, there's new drilling there by Blackstone, and you can see that we've been very fortunate. There was no focus previously, and the massive sulfides don't have as many of these sort of PGEs and gold credits, but in the disseminated sulfide, it's a bit of a different beast. And we've managed to find quite a significant amount, and we've got some of these intersections here. You've got 22 metres at 0.4% platinum, palladium and gold, 17, nearly 18 metres at 0.74 platinum, palladium, gold, and then you've got another 45 metres here at 0.35 platinum, palladium, gold. So that's going to add significant credits to your nickel as well as your copper. So I think that's going to add a severe amount of value to our disseminated target. And just to reiterate, I suppose, the success of that drilling so far, and we've only announced, as you can see, 7 or 8 holes there at the moment. And most of those intersections are, again, quite, first one we announced to the market, 45 metres at 1.2% nickel, 0.2 copper and 0.35 PGE, so, and up to about over a gram of PGE, which includes the platinum, palladium and the gold. So there's a lot to work with, and there'll be a lot more results coming out in the very, very near future. Like I said, originally we started with 1 rig, went to 2, and now up to 4 rigs on site. One of the sort of interesting things we've been doing is trialling some of the geophysics, and we've done a little bit of work on looking at the correlation between the high mag responses in the presence of ultramorphic intrusions, and this image is showing there's several other targets in terms of disseminated sulfide targets which are in the area. This is the Ban Phuc intrusion, but there's one to the south, southwest and to the east, as well as these other areas. So that's some other targets for us to consider in the future. We're looking at getting our own IP and EM equipment, building that and taking staff on site, training them to use that and do low cost and obviously of the required standard geophysical exploration on site. So look forward to many more targets. We've also got strong correlation between IP and higher grade disseminated zones at Ta Khoa, as you've seen from this image, and so there's also a number of other priority targets. So that's just the first couple of test lines that we did there. Just moving on quickly about the MET. The reason we actually done an MOU with EcoPro was to look at the downstream and more importantly produce nickel sulfate, and we can see that there's a great opportunity for Blackstone to do this and build these facilities in country, which is significantly cheaper, and then we can supply to lithium-ion battery and cathode manufacturers in Asia. So already LG Chem are looking to build a facility on the coast, and we're looking to potentially supply product feed into that. But the Ta Khoa has demonstrated with obviously the mining of the massive sulfide and the previous work done on the disseminated sulfides that it has favourable metallurgical characteristics for this low-cost downstream processing. So we think Vietnam's a very good place to be building one of these assets and feeding that growing Asian battery market. In parallel to obviously doing all the drilling, we are investigating these metallurgical downstream processes. We've been looking at partial oxidation as obviously something that's available to us today, we're quite confident that we can do that, or other processes. So we won't just be looking at partial oxidation, but certainly, or pressure oxidation, should I say, and won't be only just looking at that process, but certainly the pressure oxidation autoclave, as you can see from this slide, is a process which is in play at the moment. And doing that sort of the hydromet process at those sort of temperatures with oxygen injection just allows a far more efficient removal of the impurities and an upgrade of that nickel, copper and cobalt to produce a sulfate product. Running out of time with all the other assets we got, but certainly you can come to the booth and talk to us about it. I'll just touch on the BC Cobalt project. It's located 90 kilometres from Whistler, so it's great for a trip in winter, but terrible for drilling, as we found out last year. Expensive, but we've got a high-grade cobalt, gold and copper project, which we've got some great targets done by the IP at Jewel, which we haven't tested. We've got the permitting done, so we'll be ready next season to have a crack at that. And all the drilling that was previously done was that little gem. And just to remind you, potential of this area, we got 4 metres at 1% cobalt and 0.5 ounce gold back in late 2017. So I'll leave it at that, and if you have any further questions, come and see us at the booth. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.